This week, I attended the launch of a new report from MMC Ventures, which discusses the ethical challenges of training AI models, drawing parallels between the data gathering practices of today and the Napster to Spotify transition that occurred over 2 decades ago in the music industry. The report examines the perspectives of 3 stakeholders: content creators, data rights holders, and AI developers, highlighting the need for fair compensation and efficient rights management. The authors do a good job exploring technological solutions like AI data marketplaces and watermarking to address these issues, advocating for a shift towards licensing agreements and improved data discoverability. They also emphasize the importance of standardization in data formats and consent management to encourage ethical AI development. One thing that the report does well is look at how the dynamics between data and AI models play out during the entire lifecycle, making the observation that as we move from pre-training and fine-tuning to inferencing, the value of individual data points increases because the difference it makes to the outcomes is greater. Another great section of the report goes deep into how creators think about AI. There are some obvious findings related to compensation, control, and irreplaceability, but the authors also touch on 2 other important factors: discoverability and attribution. Discoverability in particular is an interesting one. For example, Living Assets is a company that helps artists improve discoverability of their work through search agent optimization. Search agent optimization is similar to search engine optimization, but built for the likes of Perplexity and ChatGPT search, and lets content creators easily enter into licensing agreements with AI developers. However, there's an important question left to answer. How can AI developers balance ethical practices with financial viability, given that not everyone has the budget to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on deals with data providers? Since I've just finished watching the season finale of The Great British Bake Off, I'm going to indulge in a cake-based answer. If an AI model is a cake and the ingredients are data, there are generally 4 options available. Option 1 is to buy a cake from a cake shop. For those of us who are in a hurry, this is the go-to solution. The cake will taste okay, but you have to take the word of the cake seller as to when and how it was made and what's inside of it. You may have access to the ingredient list, but you don't know where those ingredients came from. Maybe in some cases, you don't even care. You just want to eat cake. In AI model terms, this is what you can get today from OpenAI, Cohere, or Anthropic. They take their ingredients from whenever they can, usually in bulk. In other words, they use massive amounts of scraped data from the internet. This is legal, as proven by several lawsuits filed against Meta and X by the web scraping company Bright Data. But there are many ethical challenges to this approach, which the report goes deep into. Option 2 is to buy a pre-made cake mix to which you add some milk and eggs at home. This is very similar to the store-bought cake, but you still have a bit of control over some of the ingredients, plus you're involved in the cake-making process as you have to bake the cake yourself. This is what you get with open weights models. You need to fine-tune them to fit your use case, but most of the grunt work has been done for you in terms of pre-training. The data used for pre-training is scraped from the internet as well, but the fine-tuning allows you to add smaller, more application-specific datasets that make the cake ready to eat. For example, a model initially trained on a general text corpus can be fine-tuned on medical journals to excel in answering health-related questions. The ethics of using open weights models such as Llama is questionable, but there is hope that regulation will eventually make them more ethical to use. Option 3 is to buy generic ingredients from a supermarket and make your own cake in the kitchen. Chances are, you're ultimately going to end up making a cake that's more or less similar to the store-bought one, but there's something thrilling in the DIY approach. You also get an opportunity to select the ingredients and fully adjust the recipe based on your own liking. However, the ingredients still come from unknown sources, and you have to trust the sellers you've bought them from. There are some startups today that are trying to offer homemade alternatives to the store-bought cake variety. These smaller models are usually designed for specific verticals or niche use cases, similar to how people tend to bake cakes at home for special occasions. This is the approach that startups such as Zund and Beethoven AI have taken, and the report shows it can result in lower data costs. And finally, there is option 4, where you go to your local market to find ethically sourced ingredients, or grow your own, and then make the cake in your kitchen. This last option is for the more adventurous out there who secretly think they would do a good job on the Great British Bake Off. It's complicated, it's time-consuming, it's costly, but when done right, it could give you significant advantages over the competition. You have full control over the ingredients, you know where they come from, and therefore, you can reassure anyone eating the cake that not only are they eating the finest dessert available, but they can also feel good about it. Rightsify and my employer Synthesia are examples of companies that went down this path. In Synthesia's case, I explain in the report how we chose to make a multi-million-dollar investment in a recording studio where we've captured many hours of footage with paid actors and then used that dataset to train Express One, the model that generates our expressive avatars. Now that we are all caked out, let's talk about another topic that's included in the MMC Ventures report, but was also in the news this week: data authenticity. There's been a lot of discussion on how to handle issues of authenticity and transparency in the content creation and distribution process, now that more people are using generative AI to create and share text, images, or videos on the internet. Some argue labeling and self-disclosure are a way forward, but that's difficult to do in a nuanced way because there's a difference between AI-generated and AI-assisted content, for example. Some content-sharing platforms also struggle with labeled content. When I tried to upload an AI-generated video with my avatar on a very popular social sharing platform and labeled it accordingly, the platform's content moderation systems flagged it as misinformation and took it down, even though the video was a factual summary of a technical paper that I had created myself. Others are pushing for watermarking, but watermarks can be easily removed and their effectiveness might be limited. This video has a watermark, but someone could easily crop it out or use video editing software to remove it and then republish it. Finally, there's a cottage industry of AI detectors, but they're in a constant and sometimes losing battle to keep up with the advances made by AI generators. I think content credentials provide a way forward. Just like Shazam provided a trustworthy and secure way for anyone to learn more information about a piece of music, C2PA could provide more sophisticated answers related to content, AI generated or not, on the internet. It will start with a binary question. Does a piece of content, say an image, have content credentials associated with it or not? If it doesn't, we should probably not trust its authenticity by default, question its provenance, and not distribute it further. Then if there are content credentials attached to it, am I looking at the original or an altered version? When was the image made and by whom? Where was it shared? C2PA is also a great dual-use technology. It allows content creators to opt in or out from their data being used for model training. That said, challenges remain with implementing C2PA at scale, especially for video sharing platforms, which I've highlighted to Jeremy Kahn in the Eye on AI newsletter he writes for Fortune magazine, and which I'll talk about later in this video. And now here are the week's news. In the past week or so, the dynamics of the reasoning race appear to have changed. A little-known startup, a Chinese quant trading firm, and Chinese e-commerce firm, Alibaba Group, each released reasoning models that seem to score well against OpenAI's. In developing alternatives to OpenAI, the new entrants appear to have benefited from papers researchers at Stanford University, Google, Meta Platforms, and OpenAI itself have published about reasoning in recent years. Reasoning models are less expensive to develop than traditional LLMs like GPT-4o, which require spending hundreds of millions of dollars on computing resources and training data to build them from scratch. Since their emergence in the mid-2010s, intensive courses in basic coding skills have been praised as a quick route to a high-paying career, especially for people who didn't graduate from college. In a 2020 survey of 3,000 bootcamp graduates by Course Report, 79% of respondents said the courses had helped them land a job in tech, with an average salary increase of 56%. But the industry pulled back from hiring at the same time that new AI coding tools were starting to become mainstream. In 2022, Google's AI team DeepMind reported that it had tested its AI model AlphaCode in coding competitions and that it was as good as a novice programmer with a few months to a year of training. In many ways, Amazon is ideally situated to become a power in AI chips. 15 years ago, the company invented the cloud computing business and then, over time, started building the infrastructure that sustains it. Reducing its reliance on one incumbent after another, including Intel, Amazon ripped out many of the servers and network switches in its data centers and replaced them with custom-built hardware. Then, a decade ago, James Hamilton, a senior vice president and distinguished engineer with an uncanny sense of timing, talked Jeff Bezos into making chips. You can read more about how that project has evolved in The Age on Generative AI on Bloomberg. The Global Vibrancy Tool 2024 from the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI shows that the US is the global leader in artificial intelligence, followed by China and the United Kingdom. The tracking tool, which measures a country's AI ecosystem on key indicators including research papers, private investment patents, and more, analyzed data from 36 countries to find that the United States leads in several core areas. It has released more notable machine learning models, invested more private capital in AI, and published more responsible AI research than any other country. While China holds second place, it remains a distant second to the US. Every time a new AI model is released, it's typically touted as acing its performance against a series of benchmarks. OpenAI's GPT-4o, for example, was launched in May with a compilation of results that showed its performance topping every other AI company's latest model in several tests. The problem is that these benchmarks are poorly designed, the results hard to replicate, and the metrics they use are frequently arbitrary, according to new research. That matters because AI model scores against these benchmarks will determine the level of scrutiny and regulation they receive. While there have been a lot of suggestions for authenticating content and recording its provenance information, the industry seems to be coalescing, for better or worse, around C2PA's content credentials. C2PA is the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, a group of leading media organizations and technology vendors who are jointly promulgating a standard for cryptographically signed metadata. An article from Fortune looks at a recent case study from Microsoft-owned LinkedIn, which describes how the company has been wrestling with content labeling. President-elect Trump is considering naming an AI czar in the White House to coordinate federal policy and governmental use of the emerging technology. Trump transition sources told Axios that Elon Musk won't be the AI czar, but is expected to be intimately involved in shaping the future of the debate and use cases. The rate of AI model improvement appears to be slowing, but some tech leaders say there's no wall, and that has prompted a debate over how companies can overcome AI bottlenecks. Business Insider spoke with 12 people at the forefront of the AI boom to find out the path forward. Top researchers this week said scientific discoveries using AI, like new drugs or better disaster forecasting, offer a way to win people's trust in the technology, but they also cautioned against moving too fast. Public trust in AI is eroding, putting the technology's wide adoption and potential benefits at risk. At a forum in London, hosted by Google DeepMind and the Royal Society, a roster of renowned scientists described how AI tools are transforming and turbocharging science. Efforts range from the search for beneficial new materials, to the quest to build a quantum computer, to the potential for self-driving labs. Thanks for watching. This is an AI-generated video readout of this week's Computer Speak newsletter. To keep up to date with the latest news in AI and other emerging technologies, subscribe to Computer Speak on Substack.